Our speaker this evening is Dan Fillius. He is a statewide field specialist for commercial vegetables and specialty crops with Iowa State University Extension and Outreach. Before joining Extension, Dan grew organic vegetables for 13 years, including stints managing the Michigan State University Student Organic Farm and a 140 acres, oh, sorry, and 140 acres of vegetable farms at Featherstone Farm. So Dan is someone who knows a lot about vegetables, and we're happy to have him here with us this evening to share all of his best cultivars for Iowa.
Yeah, I have experience. I serve commercial vegetable growers and I have a lot of experience as a commercial vegetable grower. So I see what people are growing. I know what worked for us at the vegetable farms I worked at back in the day. And I guess if there's one thing maybe I should say is I was an organic vegetable grower, and a lot of these vegetable varieties were ones that I used as an organic vegetable grower. And I know there are some other varieties that are that are used by other commercial growers. I've tried to intersperse them here, growers who are not organic, but if you are organics, a lot of these things should work for you. So anyway, I my job is like like helping growers troubleshoot things, and so I talk a lot with growers, and when I can't figure out on the phone what to do, if you are a commercial vegetable grower, these slides are for you, so you know what services I can offer. I can come visit farms, commercial farms, folks who are selling either wholesale or CSA or farm stand. I share that stuff on my Instagram. This is the handle. This is for anybody if you're curious to see what's going on commercial vegetable farms. And do a podcast also for anybody. This is me and our state climatologist, Justin Glisson. We do a weather podcast every week in the growing season, talk about weather and how it's affecting specialty crops. So anybody, if you're a podcast listener and you want to know about the weather more in Iowa, tune in and talk at things like this and at conferences. And I've done a little research, but we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about seeds. So first of all, let's go over some terms. First of all, like OP, or which in this case stands for open pollinated, which is another term for this is often heirloom versus an F1 hybrid. Now, open pollinated are ones that you could save seed from and they would breed true. The offspring would be exactly what you got for the previous year. And so you might see that here in the, let's see if I can highlight that right here on the left-hand side there. And you want to save seed, that would be a way to do that if you wanted to have that little project. However, if you're looking for more uniform crops, where everyone is maturing at roughly the same time and they look more or less the same. These are things that I focused on growing mostly as a commercial grower. We wanted things that we'd be able to harvest all the broccoli at one time and put that in a CSA share or put it in boxes for wholesale. So that would be indicated by F1. This is a hybrid. And anyway, these are two differences. You can save seed from an F1 hybrid. However, it's not usually going to look the same. The offspring is not going to look the same as the parent. Some farmers take the extra challenge of trying to dehybridize and get those offspring to look more or less like what they wanted it to. But it takes a lot of generations to do that. But it's a fun project. You might see in a catalog also that things are organically grown. This means that these plants or the seeds that you will be buying were grown or came from parents that were raised on or under organic production. Now, if you are a certified organic farm, this is a requirement that you use. If there's an organically grown variety, then you must use it. However, if you want a different variety where the organic seed is not available, then you're okay to use that as long as you demonstrate that you've searched in 3 different places for that. Treated and untreated seed, there are organic treatments and others, but most seed treatments out there are conventional insecticides and fungicides or fungicides. And these are going to be indicated, when you open up a seed packet and the seed is multicolored. You've got either blue or purple or pink, or sometimes it looks like Flamin' Hot Cheetos. It's got like a red coating on it. Anyway, those are all conventional seed, and there are organic seed treatments that exist. And organic pelleting, film coat is something that's not usually organically allowable, but these are different terms that you might see for seed treatments, or they might be primed, things that need to go through a certain priming process to germinate better. But yeah, these are terms you might see. And then lastly, I think this is my last one at least, you might see AAS winners. And I'll mention this throughout the presentation today because what that means is that trial gardens around the country have grown out this variety and it has succeeded in a lot of these different gardens in various different climates. And so we have one of these evaluation gardens at Ryman Gardens in Ames if you wanted to visit and see which ones are being evaluated this year. But usually, if they have the designation AAS winner, excuse me, that is a fairly good sign that it's going to be reliable in most places. So let's talk about the actual vet. Excuse me. Let's talk. Let me get a drink here for a sec. Sorry. All right. Tomatoes. I figured I should lead with the most popular crop that is grown in gardens. So, and slicers are one of the most popular, right? So, Red Deuce is a tomato that is grown by almost every Amish grower that I work with. And then the Amish sell it at produce auctions, 5 different produce auctions around the state. And then people go and buy that and resell it either at roadside stands or at farmers markets, things like that. So it's very likely that you have seen these tomatoes or tried these tomatoes, and they are a reliable producer, and they've got that, classic, that perfect like beefsteak shape and size. It's a good, reliable tomato. So if you're growing a slicer, you might consider growing Red Deuce. Other ones that I didn't mention that also grow well here, we've got, Celebrity, Big Beef Plus. Those are more Big Beef Plus are indeterminate. They grow taller. Red Deuce, Celebrity are more semi-determinate. They would get about, shoulder height. Then there's fully determinate ones like Defiant that I've had really good luck with also. But Red Deuce is the one that I'm talking about today because that's the one that has shown very reliable success. Now, cherries, I love this yellow cherry called Esterina. It just cranks so many tomatoes that this tomato puts out, and they're really tasty. And we have there's a disease in soil. Most soils have it, and tomatoes succumb to this quite easily unless they're resistant. This is verticillium wilt, and it's wide range of plants that it affects. Tomatoes are one of those that is affected. Eggplant is the most susceptible, but anyway, Esterina's got really high resistance to verticillium wilt. Other ones that I've grown, a nice grape tomato. A red grape is 5-star red grape, and then a round red tomato, round red cherry. I think Cherry Bomb is one of the best ones, best tasting. It is super vigorous. It gives a lot of tomatoes, and these ones. A couple years back, it was a very bad tomato year, and it seemed like almost all the tomatoes were sick, did not produce well, but Cherry Bomb really continued producing throughout that. And the issue back then was bacterial canker, a different disease. But anyway, let's talk about heirlooms. Pictured is Cherokee Purple. This is one of the first heirloom varieties. We would plant 6 to 10 different heirloom varieties that we would either sell as a mix or pack separately for sale. And Cherokee Purple was always the first one to ripen. So this is an earlier ripening heirloom tomato, good flavor. And I can't say anything bad about Cherokee Purple. It also is one that doesn't get crazy like grotesquely lobed, and sometimes these heirloom tomatoes can get very big, and when you try to take it off the plant it like tears the tomato because it's stuck on there. But a Cherokee Purple is usually beefsteak shaped, and it has a nice color to it as well. Harvest Moon is one that these are the other heirloom that I really like is striped German. But if you're looking for one that might yield more or perform better, there has been some breeding work done to make the plants that grow the heirloom looking tomatoes more vigorous and more disease resistant, and to create more tomatoes. And these are hybrid heirlooms or high looms, some companies call them. And Harvest Moon is one that looks like striped German, this yellow with a red center. When you slice it, it's got a nice red core. It's a very pretty tomato, and so you might consider Harvest Moon or striped German if you want to go old school. Striped German would be the OP, open pollinated version. Harvest Moon would be the F1 hybrid. Paste tomatoes, we've got Chipole's Pride, which is a pictured in the picture here is Gilberti. Gilberti is my like for flavor, bar none, best paste tomato I've ever tasted, and it is just so good. It doesn't produce the most fruit, so if you wanted like a lot of sauce to put up for the winter, you'd want to have a lot of plants of this variety to so you could have enough. But Chipola's Pride, I have 5 plants and usually get, more than enough sauce for we don't do anything much. We just actually boil them down and then freeze like just the tomato puree. Basically, we run them through a food mill to get the skins off. But 5 plants seems to do our family pretty well with keeping up with some sauce, some pureed tomatoes in the wintertime in the freezer. But yeah, Gilberti, very tasty. All right, let's move on to peppers. Another popular one. We've got pictured here is Carmen, the second one down. This is an AAS winner, so this one's super reliable. And every year I've had amazing success with Carmen. It just really cranks out the peppers, and they're typically very sweet. I will say one asterisk here. This year, a number of growers, including myself and several commercial growers, found that every so often one of the plants was producing spicy peppers, which were like spicy to the level of, I'd say, jalapeno. But generally, Carmens are like very sweet, this like sweeter than a bell pepper. And I love it for that. So hopefully they've figured that out. This is one that was bred by Johnny's Select Seeds. But this year there was some issue with it, and I hope that they figure that out for the future. I'm not going to keep seeds from in that seed packet from last year. I'm going to buy new ones this next year. Uh, if you're looking for a red bell, sailfish is one that I tried last year that I really like. It's got increased disease resistance, but over the years I've really liked, but didn't write on here. X3R Red Knight has been a really nice one that has had really good disease resistance and produced well. It was a hard year for peppers this year. A lot of anthracnose, and really anthracnose is a disease that you can't. There's not much resistance in that you can buy in peppers for that. All right, orange pepper, Oranos is a very productive one. That's a really nice one. This one is expensive. It's one of those ones where it's like $1 a seed, but if you're looking for uh, a lot of growers will justify that because it'll produce many more peppers and each pepper sells for more than $1. So they're easily able to make that money back that way. But if you're looking for bargain basement variety, Oranos is not the one. If you're looking for those little lunchbox peppers, like they sell them in little those plastic grape sacks, red, yellow, and orange mix usually. The Sweetie series is one that I know a lot of the Amish grow here in Iowa, and I've had really good luck with the Delight series. Now, there is actually the Lunchbox Mix that is available. I think it's called the Lunchbox Mix from Johnny's. One criticism that a lot of growers have of that mix is that the red in the mix is a lot smaller than the yellow and the orange, but the Sweetie and Delights, they have red that is the same size as all of the others. Now, if having a smaller red doesn't bother you, then the Lunchbox Mix should work just fine. Cucumbers, another popular one. A grower turned me on to Green Light a few years back, and I tried it, and it was remarkably early. And it turned out it was an AAS winner. So it really produced this picture of in the upper right hand corner is Green Light. And it's these little snacking cucumbers, which are all the rage. You see them in the stores now. And if you want to grow those yourself, Green Light would be a really good one. It's only 42 days to maturity, so it's pretty early. I did these in my first planting this year, or this last year, so that I could have cucumbers early. And we just ate every single one that it could produce. Diva is another AAS winner that looks much like green light. It's got thin skins. You can pick it small or you can pick it larger. It's up to you. If you want a reliable American slicer, that dark green skin, longer, bigger cucumber, Marketmore 76 is an open pollinated one that just, it just, it just keeps producing well. It's a good one. Corinto is more expensive. It's a reliable slicer, very productive because of the breeding work that's gone into that hybrid. But again, it's reliable, a little bit more expensive seed on that one, and one that I haven't grown yet, but I'm intrigued by. And so I don't know, maybe I shouldn't be mentioning it here because this is like proven varieties, right? But Quick Snack is one I saw in the catalog, and I know Greenlight produced really early, but this one's supposedly 2 days earlier than Greenlight is, and it's a compact frame, and so it's got some container possibilities. I'm curious to see how that goes, and if you grew Quick Snack this year, I'd love to know how that thing worked for you. Zucchini. My favorite, pictured, is Cosata Romanesco. This is an open pollinated one. I think it's the best tasting. It's got like sometimes zucchini can just be, kind of watery and not really that flavorful, but I think Costada Romanesco has this really great nutty character to it. And the best thing about it also, well, the best thing is the flavor. The second best thing is that it has really low yields. So this is not a good one for commercial growers because they just want to have the most from the each plant. But this one, if you're feeling overwhelmed by a zucchini, this one you can catch up to this one. It's going to have a fruit, one or two fruits a week, and that's great. And you can let it get a little bit bigger, and it'll still be, you can make some spiralized, zucchini noodles out of it, and they're just so flavorful. The worst thing about Costada Romanesco is that it's a very large plant. It takes up about as much space as a pumpkin would. It vines out because it's a vining crop, not a bush habit one like Dunja, which is upright green zucchini, very productive, standard dark green zucchini. Dunja is one that a lot of people grow, and that one's reliable. Actual pumpkins. Pictured is Sunlight, which is a bright yellow one. I like these multicolored pumpkins. This one's a really nice one. Some of them are kind of like a off-white almost or a cream color, but Sunlight's one that I've seen that really has a bright yellow color. The only negative maybe is that it's a small pumpkin. But if you're looking for a nice little small mix, like maybe that size, a large, maybe a little bit bigger than a softball, maybe. You can make a nice mix of like Sunlight with an orange and a white at the same size, and it's a nice little decoration. Other specialty one is Prince Charming. This is that red Cinderella pumpkin, and this one is a F1 that came out recently. It's higher yielding because a big negative of the Cinderella pumpkin is that the open pollinated one, you might get one pumpkin per plant, but sometimes the plant will die or the pumpkin will rot. So you have to have a lot of space taken up to get those Cinderella pumpkins. So I'm excited about Prince Charming, though I haven't grown that one. So another asterisk there. But some reliable ones that I see all sorts of growers growing. Magic Lantern, a nice large orange jack-o'-lantern. Adonis, a nice large jack-o'-lantern. Racer, I grow this one. It's a powdery mildew resistant variety. It's quick to mature, a 90-day variety. Small to medium jack-o'-lantern. Racer is a good one. Generally speaking, pumpkins, like look for a shorter one, like 90 to 100 days. Anything that's getting close to 120 days, it's just hard. Anymore, people are trying to decorate for the holiday, the fall season, early September. And so, unless you're really planting early and pushing the envelope there, you want to have those pumpkins out harvested early. So I don't know if that doesn't bother you and you want to try a longer day maturity one, great. But I'd say general look for 90 to 100 day varieties. Same with winter squash. The later things go into the season, the more powdery mildew can take out the plant, the more squash bugs can damage the fruit. So having a compressed season is nice on these. And ones that I've had good success with are an Avalon butternut. It's an older variety of butternut, but it's really just a standby. And I'm eager to try. Have not tried Block Party butternut. It's a supposedly great yields and storage, and has the nicest thing. That block that it's talking about is it has a nice fat like neck, and so there's more more yield for you when you're peeling it and making cubes out of it, say, or even just baking it. You just get more from each fruit rather than that tapered down neck on that. An acorn that I really like is Taybell. It's kind of a big plant and it makes big acorn squash, but if that it's a bush habit one also. Most acorns are bush habit. The butternuts are more vine habit and run, but it's a really solid acorn squash. Taybell is. Melons. Divergent is one that's reliably flavorful. Like sometimes you grow a cantaloupe and you go to pick it and it looks great, but then you cut it open, it's just bland. It's just like not there's nothing there's no sugar in it. But Divergent is pretty reliable. It's a hybrid. It's a hybrid between a cantaloupe and a Gallia melon, and it's really good. The negative about it is that it sometimes cracks and you got to get it like pretty much right when it's ready. It's not they say in the catalog it's not a shipper. It's one for direct marketing to CSA growers or farm stand or CSA customers or to farm stand customers. Goddess is one that I've seen that I used to see several Amish grow. It's an early variety planted by many Amish for their first fruits that they want to sell at the auctions. However, I grew it and I found that while it produced amazingly, I had like 14 fruits at one time, which is too many for my family. But I waited 2 days between harvests, and several of them cracked on the bottom and started to rot. And so that was a negative. It's you got to be checking it all the time. And for that reason, many growers have gone away from Goddess since I used to see that, and have gone over to a variety called Avatar, which is a couple days later. It's a bit bigger than Goddess, and it's more crack resistant. In watermelon, we're not even going to get into like harvesting and how to know when it's ready. There's a fabulous document that Aaron Style has put out on the ISU Yard and Garden website that shows pictures about that. So go reference that for that. But I typically go with what's called the dead tendril or the little dried up pigtail tendril on the vine when I'm trying to see if it's ready. And these varieties all pretty reliably are able to be picked with that technique. I like Starlight's a nice early icebox, and icebox melons are the smaller melons, more quote unquote personal sized. I don't know. They're not. My family can take one down and be done with it, in an afternoon easily. And so Starlight's a nice one. It's a larger icebox melon. My favorite for flavor though is Cathay Bell, and it's pictured in the top right there, that red one. It's got a thinner rind, but it's remarkably crack resistant. And I just think that it is also great texture. And I grow seeded melons because I tend to like the texture better, and I don't mind the seeds. The yellow one that's pictured there is Yellow Doll. It's an icebox also, and it's an older yellow one, and it's still a standby. If you're looking for a large melon, then Crimson Sweet. Oh, and I think that might have even been bred by an Iowa State University professor, horticulture professor back in the day. Open pollinated one. It's a large one. It's a classic. Great texture on that one as well, and great flavor. I love Crimson Sweet. It's my favorite big one. Sweet corn is, I mean, it's hard to grow. And it's also like, is summer without Iowa sweet corn? I don't know. Uh, So the market is shifting to more people growing super sweet, this SH2 shrunken to kernel. Super sweets are harder to get out of the ground when the in the early season. So if you're planting early, you might go with a synergistic like Allure or Temptress or Latte. But Bolt, XR, and Solstice both have fairly good germination. When I did a research project and we planted those in the middle of April, and they came up fairly well, 80% germination, pretty well, with conventional seed treatment, I should say, not organic ones. But if you're planting main season when the soil is warm, any of these with untreated should do fine. And synergistic, I should say, is not quite super sweet, but it's a mix between super sweet and the SE, which is the next level down, which is what we all many of us grew up eating, and varieties like, oh man, they're slipping my brain right now. But all these ones are fabulous and would not let you down as far as flavor goes. You just the hard part though is keeping it fenced away from the raccoons and the deer, and trying to get it without worms. Good luck. My goodness, that's hard. None of these are varieties that make their own BT that kill the worms. These are not transgenic varieties, but very tasty ones. If you're growing your own lettuce, I like to grow my own lettuce. It's hard in the summer, but a couple ones that might give you some good luck in the summer if you wanted to, or warmer season. Reno and Muir have good heat tolerance. And in the spring, I like to grow romaine, and Coastal Star has always done really well for me. And then Concept and Magenta, they're just kind of workhorses. They do well in a little bit warmer or even cooler weather. They can take some frost. So uh, these are some really nice head lettuces. Basil, the essential thing for basil here in Iowa is most years you need a variety that is downy mildew resistant. Otherwise, since downy mildew became a problem, 15 years ago, it's before then you could grow any variety. Since 15 years ago when downy mildew became endemic to our area, you need to grow one that's DMR, and the ones that are most reliably downy mildew resistant are the ones that are in the Prospera series. So thankfully, there's more varieties than ever. You can get any number of Genovese types. You can get red. You can get Thai, all different types of that. However, I do want to point out a non-DMR. DMR is the abbreviation for downy mildew resistant. A non-DMR variety pictured here. This is Everleaf Emerald Towers, and it is shockingly bolt resistant. I grew it one year because I was just like, I can't believe this claim in the catalog. This must be a typo that it bolts 7 weeks after the other ones. Like I was like, that's almost 2 months, and it was true. It was 7 weeks or so after the normal basil started to send out flowers. That's when I saw the first flowers on my Everleaf Emerald Towers. So it might be fun. Not every year do we have downy mildew conditions in the weather that are conducive to it. So it might be fun to try one of these out, and but also plant some downy mildew resistant varieties. So you could, maybe it's going to be that good year, and maybe this one just cranks because it's going to not bolt. The downy mildew resistant varieties are going to bolt before this one would. And there are other Everleaf ones, Everleaf Thai Towers, so different flavors of the Towers series also. Kale, people love it, or it's a joke, or they love it and they use it as a joke for all sorts of things. But I love lacinato kale, like pictured here. This is I believe this is Mamba that is pictured here. These are all hybrid ones, F1 hybrids, Black Magic, Blackjack, Mamba. It's a really nice lacinato kale varieties, also known as dino kale. If you're looking for a curly green kale, then Winterbor, it's just a workhorse. It's been around for a long time, still a good one. Swiss chard, look no further than bright lights. It does so well, and you get like you buy the bright lights, you plant it out, and you get multiple. Each one's going to be a different color. It's also an AAS winner, All America Selections. It's a standard for rainbow chard. It's a really nice one. Um, it looks just like that in the picture. You got to have multiple plants though. Like you're gonna have a yellow plant, an orange plant, peppermint, white and pink striped stem plant, a red one. You know, I usually plant out in my transplants in when I'm starting seeds. I plant a number of them, and then I look for the most vigorous ones of the colors that I like the best, and I plant those ones out. I usually only keep two of them, so I can never get a bunch that looks like this. I only have like a couple of them. I really like. There's one that's an orange stem with a really dark green leaf color to it. That's one of my favorites of the mix within Bright Lights. I like spinach a lot. I like growing spinach over the winter a lot, and I've got it in my garden in low tunnels, protected right now. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about it. So, Rangi Toto and Sun Angel are two varieties that are really good out there. They're Savoid, this slightly crinkly leaf. I believe this is Rangi Toto pictured here, and disease resistant. Downy mildew is a big problem in spinach too. And the biggest thing, though, to look for in a spinach variety, I feel, is an upright habit. You can see how these leaves are growing up. Some spinach is very prostrate, just grows along the ground, and it's hard to like get a knife under there to cut it, or it ends up getting dirtier. So I like to look for and grow upright varieties. One that's not super upright, but is longtime workhorse, still cranking, is Space. Um, if you have been growing spinach a long time like me, and you've been looking in the seed catalogs, you might notice that a favorite variety that you had, one year isn't in the catalog anymore. And the truth is that as I understand it, the breeding work and the availability of varieties is all driven by how successful things are in California with the baby leaf lettuce or baby leaf spinach industry. And downy mildew is a big problem there too. And as soon as one variety, there's this arms race between the breeders and the downy mildew, and like the downy mildew breaks through and beats the resistance, and the breeders release a new variety, and then the downy mildew breaks through that resistance. And as soon as it breaks through resistance, they're like, well, why would we breed this variety anymore? And so it goes to the wayside, and then you lose out on that variety. Us who are like buying a small packet of it here in the Midwest compared to like a truckload of seed out in California, it's not worth it for them to breed for see if it might work. So my favorite variety was Raccoon. It hasn't been available for 12 years now, but it was very upright, and it was tasty, and it performed well for us in Michigan. Alas, R.I.P. Raccoon. My favorite carrot, pretty much every small vegetable grower in the Midwest grows Bolero as their storage carrot. So don't go any further than that. We at the Organic Vegetable, I organize a conference along with some colleagues at UW, the Organic Vegetable Production Conference, and we get 200 professional growers there every year. And we do a fun bracket tournament, Market Farm Madness, where they're voting on their favorite thing, like their favorite farm tool. One year we did favorite farm vegetable variety, and the Bolero was the favorite vegetable variety overall. Sugar baby watermelon was second. It's a storage carrot. You could grow it other times of the year, but it is so good, and it gets sweeter in storage. This is a picture of it right there. It's good for fresh market. It's also got strong tops, so people who are mechanically harvesting it with a machine can also harvest it. It's just so good, and it's the only one that really I've ever grown as a storage carrot. And you know, I'd love for I worry, like, what if it goes away, like raccoon went away, raccoon spinach, but there's no incentive for it to go away, and there's not the same disease pressure thing with carrots as there is in spinach. So shouldn't worry too much, but it's a really good one. You like onions? These are onions that you might buy from seed. You might find them in what are they called? Sets also. But Sierra Blanca, this onion is an AAS winner. This is it pictured here. It's reliably productive for big white onions. It's a nice onion. However, every Amish grower that I know grows candy, and they have great success with candy. And I mean, that name right there, candy onions, right? That's super evocative, and sells itself right there. Two potatoes that I really like. French fingerling is on the top. It's a fingerling technically, but it really is much plumper and more like normal potato shaped. It stores so well. The texture is amazing. It's just a really, really nice potato. And then I love the skin of Purple Viking potato, and it always yielded really well. So Purple Viking gets the nod here. Kohlrabi, couple of them. Conan's an AAS winner for a normal kohlrabi. Cossack, though, is a storage kohlrabi. So this is one problem that kohlrabi sometimes has, small kohlrabi, is if it gets, they split as they're growing. But I've never had Cossack split because it's a storage one. It can get to be, bigger than my head. Who would want that? I don't know. But we grew them that way one year and it scared the CSA customers. Never again. But so anyway, we planted them out and we would put them every 6 inches and we'd harvest every other one as a small kohlrabi and let the remaining ones get a little bit bigger, fist or softball size for storage because you can store these through the winter. We had them last until March and gave them out after harvesting them in the previous, October. So they're a nice one. That is Cossack in the picture, I believe. I really like sugar and snap peas. You might have heard me talking about this on IPR Hort Friday one time last year, I think, where I was saying, oh, yeah, you don't have to trellis these things. I neglected to say you don't have to, but they're not reliably going to trellis themselves. It was on a farm that I worked at that had like acres of peas where it just was cost prohibitive to trellis them that we just decided not to trellis them. But I would encourage you on a garden scale, always trellis your peas. It'll work out better for you. Sweet Gem's another one that I've had really good success with here. But Sugar Ann is tasty, tasty, tasty and has short vines. All right, we've made it to the end, and just in time. I joke that my toxic trait as a presenter is always to put more slides in than I have any business presenting in the time slot or the time that I've been allotted. But I did it. I did it in 40 minutes. What questions do you have? Plenty of time for them.
Well, we have a lot of good questions. I could have taken another minute because I was trying to look through my notes of what I grew last year, and I know I grew sugar Ann, and I was trying
Oh
to
yeah,
see if I had a note about how much it produced. So we did get one person who said that this is always good to know that people listen to you. After you recommended Bolt RX from your sweet
yeah,
corn research, that
yeah.
they got the Bolt RX and they're very excited to try it out this summer.
Nice,
Yeah. Okay, so
nice.
first, let's start off with you missed a few crops that people are really interested in, and I don't want to put you too much on the spot, but um, what about green beans?
Oh man, how did I miss green beans? You're right. Yeah, I mean, so. Jade is a really solid green bean. Like Jade you will not go wrong with Jade. A lot of people a lot of small growers who are selling produce like to go with Provider as a first one because it's earlier but it tastes not great. So I would recommend if you are the problem with you know it's earlier and it germinates good in colder soils. Consider transplanting green beans if you want to get them earlier and just go with jade. It's going to be a good one for you.
Okay, and then the other one that we had someone say no broccoli or cauliflower
Oh
recommendations.
my goodness. Yeah, I didn't do broccoli or cauliflower. Good job. Uh, Cauliflower, go with twister or early snow. Although cauliflower is a difficult one and is very disease prone. And so some growers are growing it's a green stem cauliflower that I've seen growers having a lot of good success with. This is a Chinese like style of cauliflower as I understand it, and it's more tender. If you let this is kind of there's a crop called sprouting cauliflower, which is kind of like broccolini or sprouting broccoli, and song is sort of in between sprouting cauliflower and like a nice head of cauliflower. It'll make a medium-sized head. If you let it go longer, it'll sort of blast apart and turn into sprouts, and you could cut those as sprouts. But song is a quote unquote sprouting broccoli or green stem broccoli that would be pretty good. But otherwise, twister, early snow, snow crown, those are good ones. Broccoli. The hard part is that so there's two seasons of broccoli. There's the stuff that you plant early and it grows up in the cool and matures in the heat. Then there's the like main season stuff that has to like establish in the heat and then sort of produces in the cooler temps of like August, September. And so the early stuff, Green Magic, is pretty reliable. And the later stuff, Imperial, Monty, Eastern Crown, I believe, is one that you might try. Fortress is another one that I've just learned about that would probably be good for later on.
Okay, great. Now, a lot of these cultivars, people are noticing, maybe I had heard of these cultivars before. They're not something that I normally see in the store when I'm going and picking up my seeds in the store. So,
Yeah.
what are good sources for people to find some of these
Yeah.
seeds? Are they mainstream? Will they see them in the
Yeah.
store, or will they need to go
Oh,
somewhere else?
yeah. Like you're not gonna, these are not varieties. My background as a commercial grower, we weren't buying from Burpee or from what's it, like some of these other more like ones that are marketing more to consumers like home gardeners, right? So we would be buying from Johnny's seeds or High Mowing organic seeds or Osborne seeds. Or you could find these in a lot. Those are the ones that like the small organic growers buy from a lot. The conventional growers I work with are buying more from say Rupp Seeds, which is a great seed company also, or Seedway. These are other or Rispens. These are other places you could find a lot of these varieties from. And sometimes when I am searching for a variety that I don't know where to buy it from because well, one sec. I'll say something else about this in a sec. But when I'm searching, I'll just search for the variety like Fortress broccoli, and then I'll include seed for sale rather than just Fortress broccoli. And sometimes it'll come up with actually a place I could buy it rather than just some blog about it. And the other thing I was going to say was that most of the places that you're buying seed from are not the actual breeders. There is a whole another layer of the seed like industry that is just the breeders who are selling to these catalogs, and the catalogs. So you might find the same variety in three or four catalogs, but not in the fifth or sixth one. And it's not really the Venn diagrams never fully overlap. It's just what that catalog decides, works in their area for the growers that they tend to sell to. And yeah.
And then are people going to be able to find these? We had someone ask, so maybe one person wants a bulk variety of this, or maybe one person wants a smaller variety of this as a home grower. Are they going to be able to find them in both sizes, or are some of these only going to be in bulk or only going to be available to the consumer?
Yeah, most of these are going to be available in small volumes. These because my background was as the small organic farm, and I was buying from say Johnny's, High Mowing, Osborne. These are all catalogs that have the very you can get a packet that has 25 seeds in it, or you can get, a pound of the seed. And so the other catalogs, I haven't ordered as much small quantities from Rupp, Risp, and Seedway, but those are more for the larger volumes typically, but they might have some smaller stuff for you.
Okay, great. And then speaking about the breeders, when you were talking about that,
Yeah.
people are interested. Why are the seeds treated with insecticides before sale?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Um, So many conventional growers will get the conventionally treated seed with insecticide or fungicide to so that the seed does not get attacked by like seed corn maggot when it's during the germination process or get rot pathogen like damping off. It's to prevent that so that it'll reliably come out of the ground. And there's different treatments that are on there. But yeah, if you don't want that, then just look for an untreated one or an organically grown one. Won't have any of that on there.
And kind of going along with that, can they make a disease resistant plant or cultivar without using an herbicide of some kind, or do they have to put that on a seed to make it be disease
Oh no.
resistance?
No, there's it's two different things. So like there are disease resistances bred into these varieties, and those will be listed next to the usually in a two-letter code
Mhm.
in the next to the variety. So you're gonna look at, and there's usually a key to what that code is somewhere in that in the main area of like, say you're looking at broccoli and you want to know which one's resistant to black rot, or BR maybe, or X might be for xanthomonas, you know. Anyway, those are things that are bred into there. Those are different than the insecticide and fungicide. Like the insecticide on, say, that is coating a treat with a seed treatment on a melon crop would be something that would kill cucumber beetles that are affecting that would go after it at germination and last for a couple weeks until that plant is established. But that's
Okay, great.
different than a disease resistance.
Right. So also there was a lot of interest in whether these varieties grow well in containers, or I think the question might be, do you have a list of varieties that are specifically good for growing in containers? Because there are a lot of people that don't
Yeah,
have space to put a whole garden in the
yes.
ground.
Yes, I wish I had that list, and I don't. I unfortunately those aren't the people that I'm rubbing elbows with on a day-to-day basis, and so I would lead you astray if I were to tell you which ones would be good for that. But generally, generally smaller statured things and be extra vigilant about like the soil or the media that's in there and drainage and making sure it's got water and that the pH isn't getting too high, or just use a slow release fertilizer so it feeds throughout the year. Um, those don't tell you the varieties though. These are all things you probably know. So sorry.
That's okay. Maybe I'll have to work with Aaron, who you mentioned before, who is
Yeah.
the consumer horticulture specialist. I'm
Yeah.
sure that he would be able to help come up with a
Oh
list
yeah.
of ones
Yeah.
that do well in small spaces.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So moving on to some other questions. Do you have a recommended variety for a pickling cucumber?
Yeah. So I was encouraged by I've never really grown pickling cukes, but I was encouraged by my seed rep to try H19 Little Leaf once, he gave me the seed and I never grew it. Sorry, Wes, you're not on here, but I doubt, but I never grew it. But I hear it's really great. I hear it really does. It's really reliable.
Okay. And then we had a few other varieties. We're going to just go a little bit rapid fire here of a few other
Sure.
varieties or a few other types of crops that people wanted to know about. Eggplant.
Yeah, I had really good luck. It was a really bad eggplant year this last year. A lot of growers I knew were growing this, that, and the other variety, and not getting reliable fruiting. And this is true of a lot of fruiting crops. Sorry, we're not going rapid fire. Turkish delight is the answer. It's parthenocarpic, and so it doesn't need pollination to make fruit. And it's really, I also like it. The fruit stayed glossy longer than other varieties that I'd grown in the past, like Galeen and things like that. So anyway,
I did not mean to pressure you and say that it has to be rapid fire, but we're just going to jump around to a few different types of crop. Okay. People are also very interested in cabbage.
yeah, Thunderhead is a really good one. Capture are those are two really good ones. And
Okay.
green
What about,
cabbages.
okay. What about shallots or leeks?
Man, I haven't grown leeks in a long time, and so I usually let me see. I've got the catalog here. I'm going to remind myself what those leek varieties are. And shallots, there's only a couple varieties, and I would trust the Johnny's selection. I think saffron was one of the shallots that I grew, and I would usually grow the shallots from seed, and I'd get such, and then they would get like they'd be massive. They'd be like almost like an onion. So I really like I really do like growing shallots, but let me look.
Well, I like
And while
cooking
I'm
with
look,
shallots. I prefer them to onions, I must say, personally.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, sometimes those fancy cookbooks, they say use shallots. And I'm like, I've got an onion. I'm gonna use that onion. Okay. Oh yeah. Conservor and it's not saffron anymore. Okay. Um, Conservor and Innovator, I guess, might be. Oh, those are the same type. Conservor is one I've grown. It's a nice one. It's a single bulb shallot, so it like doesn't have that. It looks more like an onion, rather than the split. Let's see about leeks. Here we go. While I'm looking for this, what's the next one?
The
Oh, I
next one
got.
is one that I feel like is kind of a niche vegetable, but apparently it's not because we get a ton of questions about it in extension, which is asparagus.
Oh yeah. I'm not an expert on asparagus. I wish I knew more about the varieties there. But the one thing that I know that I would, if I were planting asparagus, I would go with a variety. I wouldn't grow it from seed. I would grow it from rootstock because, as I understand it, the you get less fruiting that way. They're all male plants that when you get the roots and they don't get the fruiting. And when you have fruiting in there, then it drops seeds and fills in and like thickens up the whole patch more than or faster than you would otherwise. And so you get it just crowds itself out faster. But I think Guelph Millennium is one. Uh, I can look for asparagus varieties in a sec, but Tadorna is a leek that I've had pretty good luck with. Megaton is another one that's a good leek that I really like. And now I'm flipping to the asparagus.
Okay, great. And then we're going to do one last question, and I actually lost track of time a little bit. After that,
Yep.
I'm going to bring up my closing slideshow and I'm going to share all of
Okay.
my closing reminders with everyone. So
Yep.
if you want to find that, and then I'll ask you the last questions. I
Yep.
am going to
Millennium.
drop some Millennium. Okay.
Yep.
I'm going to
Or
drop some links
asparagus.
here in the chat for everyone. So Millennium for asparagus. I just
Oh,
dropped
and
some
I
links in the, yes.
and green beans, Maxibel. I like filet beans, real tiny filet
Mm.
beans, and Maxibel is the best one. It's a green one that me and my wife Sarah really we really love that one.